victory and the agony of defeat.
Madison, great ball around the corner, Penisini, he beats them all! Junior Polar out wide, bumped away from Trindle, Sharks coming through, none of them can hold him!
Good morning and welcome to our final regular season NRL game preview podcast. This is the Tip Sheet podcast, of course, and I'm your host, John, also known as 4020, and joining me to break down the final 5-game docket of the season. There are more games to go through in the coming weeks, but it is the final full docket from Jersey Flegg all the way through the NRL. It's my good mates Craig and Chris. Bit of a CNC right there. Fellas, I don't know, it's a bit bittersweet.
The music factory, mate.
It's a bit bittersweet, isn't it? We don't want... The season is wrapping up for the Parramatta Eels in the NRL, but they are perhaps the form team of the competition right now. They've finished their season like a house on fire, taking up a couple of really big scalps in the Roosters and the Warriors, looking to round it out this week, of course, in their final game at home against the Newcastle Knights. So I'm going to get to that shortly. But, yeah, I don't want the season to end, but unfortunately all good things do come to an end. And to help break it down, I suppose you guys are my therapy group.
Cheers, John. Well, look, I just lead a pretty mundane existence in Australia, so I'm going to throw over to
Our
Chris
international
there
correspondent, yes.
The international correspondent, the traveller of the globe. Can you fill in our viewers / listeners with where you are now, Chris?
I'm just in Chicago at the moment, so I've actually had a great sporting weekend. Apart from not sleeping whilst watching the Parramatta game at I think 3 a.m. on Friday morning, I got down to Atlanta to visit a friend and went to Georgia Bulldogs home opener for college football against Marshall.
Yeah.
93,000 fans.
Yeah.
That was good. And then got back up to Chicago by Sunday night, and there was a public holiday here on Monday, Labor Day, and I managed to get out to Wrigley Field to watch the Cubs play Atlanta Braves, and the Cubs came back from 6-1 down to win. So the crowd was absolutely pumping. But you know, I'm here for my first love, which is rugby league, and you know, the therapy couch of you guys. It's what a weird season. I mean, we started out with so much promise, and 60s, you know, giving us the reports from training, and everything looked pretty solid. And then they got to round one and looked like the guys had never met each other before. And I think what 60s had seen in training is what we're seeing now, and we're starting to see the evidence of some of the combinations that have been formed and the trust that Riles has had in his players. And I think the key thing is just going to be, can we maintain that momentum through the off season and then into the start of next season? And that's what I think there's a lot of hope for a lot of Parramatta fans right now.
Chris, it's interesting that you say that, because I was at training yesterday and got to have a bit of a chat with Sam Moa after it was finished. And he said to me, because I said to him, you've got to be happy with how things are happening with the defence. And he said, really wish the season was another 4 or 5 weeks longer, because they feel they've got them where they want them to be, like especially defensively. Like everything's really embedded right now, and the players are locked into the systems, and you can see that. And we saw, you mentioned the preseason. My reports in the preseason was all about the speed at which they were training and to play. And as you noted, we saw nothing like that in the opening rounds. But in this back half of the season, we've seen that fast, exciting way that they look to play, the way the forwards look to link with each other, that short pass game, driving through the middle, making use of the little bit of pace that we've got out wide as well. Iongi coming in, it was interesting because that early part of the preseason, Iongi wasn't there, and we had Joash, and there were some people saying, oh, you know, Joash might push for the fullback spot. As soon as with respect to Joash, and he was showing some incredible things. We were talking about how he was in some of the drills. It was like he was beating defenders in the space of a phone box. That was what his footwork was like. But as soon as Isaiah arrived, it was obvious that he was going to be the first choice. And then it became, how do you fit Joash in? Because he's pretty hard to ignore what he's doing there. He might not be the first choice fullback. You've got to find a spot for him in the 17. And that's ended up what it's been. This week, of course, we got Dill's farewell performance. So Joash makes way for Dill. And I think a lot of people, there's obviously those that maybe would have liked no change to the team this week. But I think the majority of people are on board with giving Dylan a farewell. So anyway, we've got 5 games to power through. Just before we do, of course, our thanks to the sponsors, Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narelle and Parramatta, and of course the home of the Eels, Parramatta Leagues Club, where John and I will be for our preview match appearance.
Pre-game show, yeah.
Final pre-game show in at Para League. So if you get down there, I think we're on about 2:00. John, if there's any change to that, people, please don't take that as gospel just yet, because we're waiting to see.
We are a few days out from kickoff still, so there is very much subject to change possibility.
Yeah, if we get a legend player make an appearance, we sort of shift the time around to suit when they're available.
Accommodate their availability, exactly.
Yeah, and with this being a double header, but the NRL's the first game, not too sure what time the legend players are required to be at the stadium for that. So we have to work around that. But also can't forget to give a plug to the Dennis Carnahan Rugby League, the musical appearance at Vikings at Dundas, 11th of October. If you're a member of Para Leagues, you're a member of Vikings at Dundas. Vikings is part of the Para Leagues group of clubs, and it's a great little venue there. It's had renovations. It's like that small little local club, but it's got the backing of the big leagues club as well. So you've got the great food options, you've got the facilities, but it's got that local neighbourhood feel as well, that community feel. So it's a great place to get to. So get there. Don't waste time on tickets, because everyone knows Dennis Carnahan and his That's in Queensland song and his musical comedy stylings around rugby league. Tickets are only $50, so make sure you get on to Rugby League, the musical, rltm.com.au for tickets, or hit Dundas, Vikings at Dundas, and organise your tickets. So there's a little plug for that. But it's, as I said, great venue, great show. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. You can rock up. If Chris was here, he's got that collection of retro jerseys that he could put on to get to the show. So anyone that's going to go to it, make sure you put on the footy jersey to go and watch it, because that's what he wants, an audience with people wearing their old retro jerseys, just to give that real rugby league feel about the show. Okay, John, let's hit the jersey flag.
Oh, just before that, Chris, I know you were in the live chat on Tuesday night, and I'm not sure if you put a comment in, but Craig and I gave our tentative suggestions for the KT medal. Where's your vote going this year?
I came to it late, so can you just remind me what the KT medal is?
Ken Fournette, the Eels end of season.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
I could have been a bit better than going straight to the acronym. Yeah, the Ken Fournette, and I plumped for Jack Williams. Craig, did you settle for Rosario Young?
Yeah, I think I acknowledge Jack Williams, because I said that it could very well go to Jack, and he'd certainly be in the running as far as I'm concerned. And I'd be tempted to give him the medal as well. But if I nominate who I think will get it, I think it's Isaiah Yongi. With a special mention as well, Riley.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I was going to say, just indulge me for a minute, because I think there's been a few guys around the team that have been pretty good this year, and I don't think he'll win it, but just want to have a special mention to Junior, because if you look at what Riles did at the club, and he definitely moved out a number of the more senior members of the team, and Junior responded to the challenge. I think he probably dropped 15 kilos or so, without knowing the exact number. Got in great shape. He can't play the minutes he used to play, but he is still an absolute weapon. And you can see the respect that Riles holds him in during each game. When the game's on the line, immediately he gets his big man back out there, and he can turn a game in defense or in attack. So a shout out to Junior. I tend to think it's going to be Jack Williams, because I don't know, Isaiah missed probably 5 or 6 weeks, I think. And I wonder if that'll impact his ability to win the award. I mean, he's definitely Rookie of the Year, but I think Jack's probably played a few more games, maybe more consistent across the entire year. But I mean, you couldn't split them, to be honest with you. They're both great options. And the other one would be Fox as well. I mean, Fox has had a great season, and so has Lomax, even if his goal kicking's been falling away miserably. But I know I've just listed half the team, but that's... I'll go with Jack Williams as well.
Nice bit of solidarity here.
Chris, there's logic to it. You name half the team, you're 50% chance of being right.
Cover the spread. You cover the spread, baby. Yeah. Okay, so let's get into the previews, guys. And thanks for indulging me there, Chris. I know it wasn't on notice there, but good response. So, of course, as you mentioned, Sixies, will start with the Jersey Flegg. They find themselves in an elimination final, top 5 in the Flegg and New South Wales Cup in their final system this week, which means a week 1 bye for the top-seeded team. 2 and 3 play each other in a non-knockout final. The winner goes through to take on first seed. 4 and 5 play each other in a sudden death final. And it gets a bit confusing here, so bear with me. The winner of 4 and 5 plays the loser of 2 and 3. The winner of 2 and 3 plays first seed. The winner of the then game between 1 and 2 goes straight through to the grand final. And then the loser of 1 and 2 plays the winner of the other game. And then that winner goes through to the grand final. So that is the system that we're dealing with in a top 5 system. I hate it. Just make it.
I love it. Jono, this is the old Winfield Cup system.
It is the old it is the old Winnie Cup system. It's just unnecessarily complicated. Just have another team in the finals, give 1 and 2 the week off, and then the play through to the grand final qualifier the week 2. But here we are. So Eels in a sudden death final in the Jersey Flegg, and we went through the team list on Tuesday, but of course it is a preview podcast. We're going to run through the Parramatta team that take on the Penrith Panthers. 4:00 p.m. kickoff on Saturday at a Jubilee Stadium as part of a doubleheader there. Eels featuring in both the games there. And we start at fullback with Nathan Howard. On the wings, it's Lorima Rokasuka and Muhammad Al-Madine, with, I believe, Lorima on the right and Muhammad on the left. In the centres, Tavaka Palu gets his second game back after returning from injury. He's going to be opposite of Dom Destratus, who works back from the back row into the centres. We've lost Antioch Faitala Marino this week. In the halves, Matty Hunter and Josh Lynn are a very seasoned pair there. Front row, Bo Lucian and Tiankan Brown are the prop forwards. Paddy Spencer's back from his game in the Cup last week, and he's taking over at dummy half in the number 9 jersey. Tyrese Lakini was in the front row last week. He pushes back to the edge, opposite of Chris Petrus, who the Eels get back from the Peter Mulholland Cup. He goes onto the edge, and I'm not sure if he's going to be pulling double duties with Patrician Brothers. They take on Endeavour Sports High in the grand final of that competition, but he has been named, obviously, in this grade as a massive inclusion for the Parramatta Eels. Rounding out the team and locking out the scrum is Max Popo. Then we go to the bench. Lachlan Koinakis is the dummy half utility. Raf Destratus, Damascus Nemia, and Javan Stevenson Hala, are the beefy boys there as part of the rotation. And then an extended roster that features Trace Beattie, Wesley Picotti, and curiously Isaac Jim, who was also named up in the New South Wales Cup. So I'm not sure what's going on there. But Beattie and Picotti are the two, I'd say, featured options there if the coach and the coaching staff want to go into the reserves. And like I said, taking on the Penrith Panthers, I think the Eels have split their results against the Panthers this year, boys. Last time they met, the Panthers did dust up the Eels, but they were under strength and in the midst of a real form slump. But prior to that, the Eels, I think, got them earlier in the season. I'm just going to double check this, make sure my facts.
Yeah, it's 36-16 early in the season to the Eels, 40-16 in the return match.
Almost a mirror of the the two results. 4 points between the two teams there. But the Eels were, as you mentioned, desperately under strength because I believe that the Australian Schoolboys Carnival injuries and suspensions and promotions to the Cup had them ravaged by injuries in the midst of a form slump too. So be interesting to see where they're at in this one. Parramatta Eels' last start was the 52-22 win against the Melbourne Storm, and under strength Melbourne Storm. But they went down to Melbourne, conceded 12 points and then turned around and put the second string Storm to the sword. And before that, they've also scalped the full strength Storm, the Cronulla Sharks, and then they also dropped the game to the Warriors when they travelled over to New Zealand. So form line's not too bad for the Parramatta Eels, boys.
Yeah, there's about eight to nine different players in this Eels lineup compared to when they fell to the Panthers before. And just to give you an idea, this is an idea of the rotating fullbacks we had this year. Cooper Fuller played fullback that day, John. And then the back line was Alamadine, Corey Lee, Will Lewis, Dom Ferrugia, Lorenzo Talatona, Josh Lynn. The pack, Nemia, Hudson, Talangi, Destratus, Funa Iuta, Destratus, bench Spence, Popo, Samuelu, and Tapau. So it was, as I said, there's about 8-9 changes to that team. Look, I have that game embedded in my head, however, with how the Panthers played that day. They were really the Eels stuck with him early, but then the Panthers started getting confidence, and they were, I won't say they were miracle balls, but they started to...
They had some pretty aggressive offloads and passes that were finding the mark, which is, as you see in these sort of games where momentum can lead to so much confidence, and suddenly the ball starts sticking when you think it's like, how? And that was very much a game like that. The Panthers did a great job seizing on the momentum and maximising those opportunities. And so the two teams coming to this game with coming to this sudden death matchup, a game apiece on the season. I'm not sure Penrith's, that's actually a good shout. Let me have a quick gander at Penrith's form line, because we mentioned that they're 1-1 with the Parramatta Eels, but if I look at their run into the finals, they got dusted up by the Panthers, by the Raiders 40-18. They accounted for the Dragons 44-30, smashed the Warriors 60-22, but then got beaten by the Sharks. So their last month of football is 2-2. Eels are 3-1, and the Eels also met. The Sharks who beat the Panthers, it was 24-16, so a close loss. But the Eels did dust up the Sharks, who are the number 2 seed, I believe. Number 2, number 3, I think it's number 2 seed. And also the Melbourne Storm for the Parramatta Eels. So you can't read too much into the last month of football, of course, because there's now a whole new ball game, sudden death football. But the Eels are well positioned here. Even with the players they are missing, I think they're in with a great chance here. Unfortunately, it's they are the 5th seed versus the 4th seed, but there is no home field advantage unless you're the Dragons, just by the nature of the venues. I look at this team. I do see some holes. I mean, Nathan Howard's a great young player coming through the SG Ball system, but he spent most of this year spent all this year playing centre. And as you mentioned, Craig, it's a function of the fact that we've gone through about 6 or 7 fullbacks this year, and there's just been cursed at the position. So if he can just hold the fort there, that'd be huge for the Parramatta Eels. But experienced halves pairing of Hunter and Lynn, a lot of the onus is going to fall on them and their ability to control this game. I think that the back line, even though it is not first choice per se, we've seen Dom Destratus seize opportunities. He's a back row by trade, but he's been a fantastic Mr. Fix-It for the team and has found ways to score consistently out in the centres. So I still think there's enough strike in the back line. And I look at that pack and, Bo Lucian, Tiankin Brown, Damascus Nemi and Javon Stevenson-Halla. Again, no Ryder Talangi, no Josiah Funayuta, no Yeti Samuel, no Isaac Jim. And that's still a very good starting and rotational pack there. So, as much as the Eels are still down men or manpower, I think that if they play consistent football, reasonable football here, they should come away with the points. Well, points.
Yeah, Chris, I'm interested in your take. John gave his take on the 5-team final series. You meant, as you said, that's the old Winfield Cup system, but it requires teams in 4th or 5th to have to win those 4 weeks in a row to win the title. And if you finish 1st to 3rd, you certainly get a real advantage there, because you get the second bite of the cherry at least once in that format. So, how do you feel about a top 5? Do you think that gives better reward than a top 8? I mean, it's it's obviously a product of you don't want to have the top 8, say, when you only got a 12-team competition.
14 team competition. It's not.
I know it's 14 with this, but we've got and I guess we do have, when we get to it, in a couple of weeks, the Harvey Norman's only going to be a 4-team final series because they're got a 12-team.
That actually sounds right. They are a 12-team comp, yes.
Yeah. So anyway, what's your thoughts on a top 5, Chris?
Well, I love it because I know John mentioned it requires a bit of mental arithmetic, but a bit of mental gymnastics. But I like the fact that first place gets the week off. You get rewarded for winning the minor premiership, so that consistency gets rewarded. Second and third, then on the second tier, they get rewarded with a second bite at the cherry. And then if you come 4th and 5th, well, I think realistically, it should be hard to win it if you're at the back end of the final series. I mean, we saw when the old Winfield Cup system was in place, I think Balmain miraculously made the grand final in '88 when they played in a Tuesday night play-in, I think, or 5th place playoff, and they still managed to run the gauntlet. So they won 4 in a row and then lost the grand final famously with Ellery Hanley getting knocked out. Then in '89, I think the Raiders did it from 4th. Those were the only teams in that system that actually managed to win it. It's not easy. I think, look, realistically, I prefer this purely from a fairness point of view and a practical point of view. I think at top 8, you need those extra games if you're selling TV rights. So I think that's probably there's a commercial element to why you would have so many teams rewarded in the NRL for making the semi-finals. You want more games, you want more eyeballs, you want to keep more fans interested. But that's not necessarily the case on, the NRL's not selling the bar TV rights, so that's not really a consideration here. I love it. I mean, in our fantasy leagues, in our Supercoach leagues, we set up everything with a top 5. Maybe it speaks to my age and the era that I grew up watching, but I think it's the fairest system we've ever had. I think the system we have now in the NRL is better than the old McIntyre system, which was, Parramatta were the beneficiaries in 2009 when Haynes scored against Saints, and then we went through to the grand final. But yeah, I love the top 5. So you won't hear any complaints from me. Sorry, boys.
No, not looking for complaints either. Look, John, we'll get straight into giving tips on this. It's probably as strong a lineup as you can get given the circumstances for the Eels.
The Pete Mulholland Cup is running to its conclusion, which means the Eels are still missing a couple of players. Obviously, the New South Wales Cup is pulling on resources as well. And we're not sure about injuries and suspensions, which is always a factor. But all things considering, still a very reasonable team. Like a very, very reasonable team. And I've been on this bandwagon for a while. Even considering how many players are out, and I've mentioned in the podcast prior that there's literally a second playing roster you could field from the Jersey Flegg players this year that would also be title contenders. I look at this team and I still think that the only thing that will stop them this week will be themselves. So that's where my vote goes.
Yeah, look, I'm the same. It's the pack. The pack's going really well. The inclusion of Chris Petrus.
Look who they're missing in the cup we mentioned before.
Yeah.
But let me just put my cup team here. Funai Ayuta, Will Lewis, Yeti Samuelu, Ryder Talangi, and Isaac Jim. And they still have a pack that features Lucian, Brown, Lakini, Petrus, and Popo in the starting team, and also Nemir and Javon Stevenson-Halla, as well as Raf Stratus on the bench. And Trace Beattie, as you mentioned on the news podcast, Craig, a guy that's made a huge jump into the Flegg, is still surplus to requirements in that 17. And maybe he's going to play on Saturday, I don't know. But he's been fantastic in the Flegg, and he is still surplus to requirements. So an embarrassment of riches here for the Eels, which is why I really feel that if they play competent football, they win. And no disrespect to the Panthers team, who have some fantastic talent. I think, in particular, Jira Lydiard's turned some heads this year. Nephew of course, the fantastic David Lydiard, who's been a guest of ours on the pregame show a number of times. Fantastic bloke. And while we do tip our hats to that familial connection, hopefully Jira is on the wrong side of the equation on Saturday.
Yeah, son of Glenn. Look, as I said, inclusion of Chris Petrus.
Big.
Tiuncan Brown back in there. we know Dom Destratus, even though he's a back row, he'll do a good job out in the centres. He's even been Mr. Fix-It at times in the season if the defence out wide has had
There
a
was
few
a
problems.
game out at Lidcombe where he had to swap from like right edge to left centre, I think, or vice versa, left edge to right centre. He's been very much Mr. Fix-It for the crew there, and had a great year. So I wouldn't be surprised if he bagged a trial too. Honestly, that seems to be his calling card in these games when he gets thrust into the centres. He's not just Mr. Fix-It, but he's Johnny on the spot.
Yeah, and you've got such great experience with Paddy Spence, and who's done a really good job this year. Mostly playing dummy half, but he's had to fill in out at lock. We know he's had a background out at fullback and being a versatile player with even in other backline positions. But I'm going to go for the win there. I think I'll just leave it at that. I think they'll get the job done. And as much as I'm worried about the Panthers based on their last performance, I actually think the Eels might get this done comfortably, with the caveat that they're not their own worst enemies. So are we all in agreement, fellas? We'll back the Eels to win that one?
Yeah, I think Parramatta 30, Penrith 22, two very seasoned halves as well. So Josh Lynn, I think in his last year of Flegg eligibility, and Matty Hunter sadly would lose to Newcastle next year, but those two seasoned halves playing off the back of a dominant pack, I think Parramatta too good.
I like it. Yep. I like it.
Yep.
All righty.
Okay, Harvey Norman.
Harvey Norman Women's Premiership. Parramatta Eels on a tear in this grade. They've gone, was it 5 or 6 straight now? It's
No, it's 7.
7 straight, is it now? 7 straight. It was 6 straight last week. There you go. Puts them into the top 3 now. So they've leaped the Illawarra Steelers, who dropped below both them and Mounties on the back of weekend results. Eels now hosting St. George, who come into this one. Whoa, I did not expect that. St. George, stone cold, marvellous last, without a win to their name this season. The Steelers have taken all the talent in that matchup, in that sort of marriage there, it looks like. So we go through the Eels quickly. Still missing a centre, by the way. But at fullback, it is Ella Carlisle, Paige Knapp, and Tegan Long are your wingers. Zoe Fay has been dropped back to the HNWP this week. She is the lone centre named thus far. So we are TBA on the other centre. Then we go into the halves. Matisse Bettridge and Aaliyah Sufan we've come to be accustomed to as a 6 and 7. Jess Kennedy is the captain in the front row, alongside Ruby Jean Kennard Ellis, the 2 bookends. Chelsea Makira is back, and she's a dummy half. Bella Sanford and Hosey Lenars are on the edges. Kylia Grave, a young lock forward. Then on the interchange, Ava Jones, Leanna Dimmick, Alana O'Loughlin, Matoisha Kalepo, and then the first reserve, Caitlin Pearden, who is obviously I say obviously, for those that have been following the season, she is a back and has featured on the wing a couple of times, or more than a couple of times. And they take on the St. George Dragons, not the Illawarra Dragons. This is a split Illawarra and St. George outfit in the HNWP. I feel like Shay Shipton was with us at one point, maybe. There's a Schuster there. Just looking who else I recognise in that team. That's about it, though. And yeah, so Eels coming in 7 straight wins after their opening 2 losses, which were both very competitive. And the Dragons yet to post a win. So you don't count your chickens while they hatch, but this game, it takes place on Sunday, 12 o'clock p.m. out at Kellyville Park. Home game for the Mighty Blue and Gold. The Eels would be pretty strong favourites. Probably the most sure favourites they've been all season. I don't know if it's to set themselves up for an ambush, but they've been playing good football, Craig and Chris, and it's just a case of doing what you've been doing. It's like 22 Jump Street. Just do the same thing.
John, I don't know whether Alicia Bell's injured.
Yeah, she
because she's
played last week. Only kicked the 1 goal, which is very uncharacteristic for Alicia, but it was still enough to get the Eels home.
Got a try. I think she hit the post with at least one of her kicks as well. So
the Eels are missing a stack of players from the team that played last week. Bell, Pottinger, Graham Wivel, Fontaine Tafil was a big out. Kiana Takarangi is out because of a promotion. Rory Mueller and Tamira Liardi also featured on the outs list. So a lot of rotation this week. And they've gone through some weeks they've had a fair bit of rotation. They've found a way to maintain their pace and their form. So I'm not too concerned. I am curious to see what they're going to do at centre, though.
Yeah, well, look, Caitlin Pearden, we know
could just go straight in.
At centre. she was playing there in Tasha Gale in the past. They could move her around there. They could
Collier Gray's
move
played
Tegan
centres
Long.
this year.
They could
Tegan
move
Long. Yeah.
Tegan Long into centre. If Alicia Bell's not injured, she might come in. Otherwise, I would think Caitlin Peden comes in and does a job. But what we've seen with this, Chris, is there's a lot of girls here that have played together in Tasha Gale over the last couple of years. They form a significant part of this team with a few key ins there. And you're starting to see those combinations coming to fruition, and a lot of confidence about how they play. I really think there's some players there who won't be that far away from NRLW. I think Kylia Gray's a major talent in that team at lock, and she's looking really comfortable in that link between the forwards and the backs. They get the job done in this. How well they get the job done, I'm not too sure, because every game it seems like is close and they find a way to get the job done. That's how it's happened this season. So, but it's really important. I don't know if you fellas have seen the table, but it's quite jam-packed. You can't afford to drop a game.
One game could drop you 2 or 3 spots, yeah.
Yeah. One game could drop you 2 or 3 spots, and there's only 2 games left in the season before the 2-game final series. Because with the top 4, in this one, Chris, they just go 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3, 2 winners into the grand final. That's it. So it's, you don't want to finish 4th and come up against the minor premiers, but the way this competition is with the girls, it's pretty tight at the top anyway. So maybe it doesn't matter if you finish anywhere 1 to 4, but it's very easy to drop out of that 4 with just a couple of losses. So I'll tip them to win. I'll say 6 to 8 point margin there. John?
I mean, the Dragons are winless, and you don't want to be mean, but that's pretty tough to do in the modern age of football. I hope that the Eels can win and win well. I'm hoping for a 13+ here, and especially with the home field advantage out on Sunday, which should be hopefully a nice afternoon out at Kellerville on Sunday. I know there's been a bit of roster churn this week, but I'm hoping that they can still get to a 14 to 18 point victory.
And Chris, the last thing you want is for a team that's travelling well to take a team that's not travelling well lightly.
Yeah. I think they'll win. I don't think they'll take lightly. I think we're seeing the momentum coming through in the back half of the season. There's a few girls here who could win 2 premierships in 1 year, I think. So I think they'll win on their way, and they'll cement a top 3 spot after they win the next 2 games, and see where it goes from there.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, John, we now move to the New South Wales Cup, and an Eels team that's, I think it's fair to say, has struggled the last 2 weeks after a really impressive season as a whole.
Yeah. Momentum has certainly been derailed in the last fortnight. I had a tough trip over New Zealand where they were vastly under strength, met the runaway minor premiers in the Warriors and got dusted up by 50 points. Had a better team named last week against the North Sydney Bears in a game on Saturday night out at North Sydney Oval, and we're hoping going to be a bit more competitive, but maybe they had their minds on the finals. I don't know. They were very awkward, very off the pace, and again had 50 points put on them, which is not the sort of scorelines you want to see coming into the finals. But you do reset and forget, and you sort of like I said, if the Jersey Flegg gets a whole new ball game. It is not a sudden death football game here. They are in the 2v3 bracket here in a top 5 system, so they do get the second bite of the cherry. They do take on the second placed St. George Illawarra Dragons. They are a merger in this grade, and I can see the Illawarra on the logo there. And these 2 teams met twice this year, I believe. I think one was a draw, and the other was a win for the Parramatta Eels, if I'm not mistaken. 28-all draw in round 5, and then the Eels met St. George at Wollongong and dusted them up 36-22 in round 17. So pretty good record there for the Parramatta Eels despite their recent struggles in a neutral setting. And they've got a pretty interesting team this week because The resources, again, been stretched a bit thin at a crucial point in the season, and they've had to lean on their young players to step into that breach. We start at fullback, and speaking of young players, he's had a fantastic year, Apa Twaddle, or Te Horanui Apanui Twaddle. He'll have the number one on his back and be part of that spine. On the wing is Bailey Simonson, and he's opposite of Samuel Louisu, who comes into the team this week. Araz Nava and Jake Tungor, the two centres there in the 3 and 4 respectively. Another young gun there who just re-signed. You were there in chat, Chris, asking us about this one on Tuesday. Lorenzo Talataina, big extension to the end of 28 for the Parramatta Eels, and he continues his campaign. He played SG ball this year, and he's out here helping spearhead a team in the first week of our reserve grade finals. So fantastic journey for Lorenzo, and certainly nowhere near the culmination of that journey either. He'll partner Ronald Volkman in the halfback capacity there. Huge in for the Parramatta Eels. We talked about those two losses, boys. No Volkman for either of them, and he's really been the central sort of figure for the Parramatta Eels this year, hasn't he? We've had, obviously, other fantastic players in Dean Hawkins and Josh Papali playing in the spine this year. They went on to bigger and better things in first grade, obviously, and meanwhile, Ronald Volkman has just been the player that has rallied his entire team for long stretches. In the front row, we've got Brock Parker and Tony Mattielli as the bookends. No Wedder Greg this week. We believe that is a suspension based on...
it is. I asked him. He's got a 2-week suspension.
A 2-gamer. So even if they win, he will not be available next week. There you go. So, yeah, not the most popular man with the MRC and the judiciary in reserve grade, and he's copped a few suspensions this year. So unfortunate timing there. But Brock Parker steps up this week. Joey Lussick is the dummy half. And then we get for a pair of young guns here in Josiah Funarayuta and Will Lewis on the edges. And then Dan Keir rounds out the pack and is indeed the captain as well as lock forward. On the interchange, Cruz Natili Schmidt has been drafted in as the dummy half utility this week. And then we've got a trio of very talented, very young forwards in Yeti Samuelu, Ryder Talangi, and Isaac Jim. And Isaac Jim making his reserve grade debut in a week 1 final, so well done to Isaac there. And Ryder Talangi, I mean, Yeti Samuelu had a bit of cup experience recently, but Ryder's gone from being an SG ball player to a Flegg player to being drafted into the New South Wales Cup and not looking back, hasn't he? It's 3 or 4 games consecutive now. He debuted against the Warriors, so this is his 3rd straight game here, which is a fantastic achievement for a young bookend.
So we were talking through the week about, first of all the players that the Eels have let go during the season, which it's numerous. Then I was watching training, and I'm seeing the likes of Saxon Pryke unavailable. Had a good long chat with Saxon. He hopes to be back and running at the start of pre-season. So he's confident he's going to be close to a full pre-season, that he'll be able to get in. But I had a good chat with him, fellas, because one of the things we had a bit of a laugh about was he's on one of those leg scooters to get around.
You've been there and done that, mate.
When I busted my leg, I was getting around on the leg scooter, and I tell you what, it's fun. It's good when you get into if you have to get around at a shopping centre or something like that, just to whiz around all the shoppers. It's a bit of fun there. A number of times people stop you to say, "What the hell is this?" You know, well, okay, well, if you've got a busted leg, you might want to go and get one. But apart from that, anyway, so there was we had Saxon there, Will Latu, Sam Tuiviti, Dean Hawkins. It was just like this parade of players, and of course now Hayes Dunster added to that list of injured players that are gone for the season. Dean, he might have been available in a week or 2, but I don't know that he would have been qualified.
One game off the cutoff, 7 games.
Yeah,
but in saying that, there is some curious circumstances here because Bowie Simonson has 5 games, I think, to his name. So there is 8 games as the cutoff, I think, for full qualification, but maybe there is a dispensation or an equation where it's NRL games versus cup games, and Bowie's barely played.
I think maybe with Bailey, it's because the NRL's still playing.
Maybe.
that's all I can think, because I think normally what would happen is if the NRL were in the finals, you could pick who you want across the grades, because all the grades are in the final.
Even Lorenzo's only played 5 games, so
yes.
there
so
must
that's
be,
what I'm saying. I think, but I think Lorenzo, because he's a promotion.
Yeah,
I think
there are obviously like caveats or exception based design for the rule set here, which is fine. I'm not complaining. It's more like kind of like trying to sift through the qualification factors here, and obviously like players like Ryder and Isaac Jim and Yeti, who have all got 3 or less games to their name. In the case of Isaac,
yeah, but
making debuts.
I think that comes into because both teams are qualified, so you can select who you want in those grades. It's what they mainly guard against is dropping players back when their commitments at a higher level have finished, like stacking them like that. So because the NRL is still in its final round, it may well be that players like Bailey might not be qualified for next week. And it would have been interesting, because if Dean Hawkins had been fit and had played this week in Cup, maybe he would have then qualified. I don't know, because it then comes back to regular season rounds, doesn't it? And this is the final. But anyway, regardless, what we're seeing is a team that's qualified for finals football, despite being down on manpower, has finished top 3. They've really been subjected to the injury stick all season. And then, of course, as is always with every club, the lower grades get impacted by loss of form as well, with the in the NRL, as players are up and down and what have you. So looking at it, it's still a strong team that we've named. And maybe we've got that bias in thinking that way, John, because we know...
There's definitely a degree of bias here with us.
Yeah, but it's because we know who the younger players are who are coming in. And so we look at that and we're excited by their inclusion in a New South Wales Cup team, being up from Flegg. A supporter of another team who isn't as familiar with the pathways might look at that and go, oh, geez, there's a lot of no-names in this Eels lineup this week. The Dragons are a good chance of winning this. So, but I honestly think that that inclusion of Ronald Volkman is important. Have an ARPA at the back. He's a big inclusion. Bailey trained well yesterday. I think he'll be primed for a big one. He wants to be, if he's leaving the club, he wants to be in the shop window. He wants to be seen to be a viable prospect for another club. I don't know if he's landed at another club as yet. I don't know if he's sorted out issues with Parramatta, or maybe he's running around again next year. Who knows?
The whole coaching merry-go-round that's been happening right now would not make recruitment or inking a new deal easy either. So, like you said, this is a big chance for him to put good tape on the record and help his manager find a deal somewhere. Yeah.
Look, I think based on what I've seen from the Cup team this year, and ignoring the last 2 weeks, because I think, number one, they were just belted from pillar to post with injury 2 weeks ago against the Warriors. And then I think their minds might have been on other things, because the result last week didn't really matter against the Bears. So they were going to finish in that top 3 regardless. So I think it was one of those games, and they had sin bin early, lost Richie. Oh, there's the other one, Richie Penisini. He was the other one getting around. I don't know if they've got enough knee braces up there at Parramatta. I
did note that Richie seemed to be in pretty good spirits when he did the little bit of social media for his brother's 100th game. I don't know if you guys caught that on Insta, TikTok, and whatnot, but he was out there having a bit of fun with Will, trying to count to 100, and seemed to be in good spirits there. So hopefully he'll be fine for the preseason.
Yep. So that's me, mate. An Eels win, and I'll be happy with a 1-point win. I think that it'll be a 12-point margin. Chris?
It's not going to be a popular pick. I think Saints will be too good this week. They're at home, Jubilee. I think Lachlan Ilias has been pretty good since he's gone down a grade. I think Saints have been in pretty good form in the last couple of months in Reggie's. We've got a young team. I'd love to see him win. I would have, but one thing I think is great that you maybe had the potential to get Footy Dean some eligibility for the finals. I'm sure Ryle's had a chance over the last few weeks to do so and chose not to continue Talatina's development, playing with Ronnie Volkman. I think that'll be important for the future for our club. But I think it's going to be hard for Parramatta to turn around their recent form, and I think Saints by 6.
Okay, John, and that is an unpopular view too.
That
Chris,
is,
by the way.
yes. Boo, this man. Look, just reviewing
Sorry.
the team that upset the Dragons back in was it round 15? Did I say round 17? 36-22. Backline featured Liam Scolari and Bo Newlands. It was Matty Hunter partnering Ronald Volkman in the halves, so that's a bit of a wash there for Lorenzo because they're both very good young playmakers. Woody did play. Saxon was also available back then. That was before he broke his ankle. But you had Cruz playing on the bench alongside Manny Luke. You had 2 utilities there with Will Latu and Kane Kalache rounding out the roster. Will Lewis was the 18th man. I look at that team and I look at the team that's there for this game, and I think that there might be enough juice in this squad to still win. I think Ronald Volkman is a huge in. The last 2 weeks are a concern. I was happy to watch the Warriors result away because, like we said, it was a tough trip, early morning game over in New Zealand. Very understrength team. I think they also had Woody Simbin in the first set of the game. Then they lost Richie Penisini in the game as well. So that game had a lot of reasons to be like, all right, whatever. But loss against the Bears, I'm hoping that they can. That there was a case of an eye on this game. They knew that they couldn't change their results in terms of ladder positioning at all because it was Warriors runaway won premiers, which means you could only finish second or third. So maybe that was a bit of a 09, we mentioned it before with the final system, but a bit of an 09 round 26 throw it away against the Dragons to then come back and beat the Dragons. They threw it away against the Bears to come beat the Dragons this time around. So, look, I'm going to tip with the heart here. Parramatta win. I don't know if I'm going to get another 14-point win over the Dragons, though. I will go with a 26-18 win, though, out there at 6 o'clock p.m. kickoff out at Jubilee Stadium. As I said, a double header out there. And you can catch the coverage, obviously, on Bar TV as well as on TCT.
Yeah, okay. Now, that brings us to a match, John, which I'm going to find a little bit hard to preview because it's the NRLW. And unfortunately, our Eels have been a hard watch the last few weeks.
Yep.
And anyway, I'll let you run through the team and then we'll have our comments.
Yeah, Eels versus West Tigers in this one, boys. It is round 10, penultimate round there in the NRLW, as the one-win Tigers come to Combank Stadium at 6:15 p.m. as part of that big doubleheader on Sunday. Eels have made some changes this week, but one player that we're not expecting to be changed is Abby Church, and she has the number 1 on her back. Kiana Takarangi making her club debut on the wing. She replaces Zoe Faye, and as we mentioned on Tuesday, cool little bit of Parramatta history there, becoming the first father, son, and daughter trio to don that mighty blue and gold. So a cool, really cool piece of rugby history there for the Takarangi family, and well done to all of them. Obviously, Brad was a big part of the 2010s run there with BA and company, and his father Louis also playing a couple of games for the Parramatta Eels. On the opposite wing, it is Martha Mattielli. Fleur Ginn back in the centres this week. She's been bumped back by Rosemary Beckett's return. She's in the centres opposite of Lindsay Tui. I mentioned Rosemary there. She's going to partner Rachel Pearson in the halves. Elsie Albert and Brianna Eels, your starting prop forwards. Ruben Cherrington at dummy half. Chloe Jackson has won back her starting berth on the edge. She's been great this year, and that's a deserved recall to the starting team. Opposite of Captain Mahalia Murphy, who we want to see a better game from this week after all the drops against the Gold Coast Titans. Rounding out the team, starting team and locking the scrum is Kendi Cherrington. Then on the interchange, Boss Kapua, Paige Travis, Tess McWilliams, and River Lee Arlaw. Quite a young interchange there, which is still very good to see. A lot of big, talented forwards, though. Extend the roster, Fontaine Tafua, not named in HNWP, but named here as the first reserve. So, again, maybe something to consider. Tanika Todd Hunter, Ruby Jean Kennett Ellis, Zoe Faye, and Mia Middleton. The coach, Steve Georgialis, of course. So I suppose a little bit of intrigue about Fontaine's status. I'm not sure if she's just injured, Craig, and been put onto the bench because they're the resources they have, or if she is in line for a potential debut here. But not named in HNWP, so I don't know.
And you know what? Looking at that, of course, probably Mia Middleton might be the TBA in the Harvey Norman women's team
Yes.
as well, being
Yeah, true.
a centre. So I guess we have to look at those extended lists in the NRLW to get a clue as to what might happen in the lower grade. Fellas, take out that big win against the Raiders, and unfortunately our Eels are averaging around 9 points per game in attack. And that is just not going to win you any games in the NRLW. It's just not. And if you couple that with the fact that for too many games this season, our defensive line has been passive, and it's just it's a hard combination to watch, where you see too many easy meters being made by the opposition, and then you see our own team really struggling to make the meters in attack ourselves, and then when we look to spread the ball, it just looks clunky. It just hasn't happened for whatever reason. There doesn't seem to be the cohesion or the energy that we saw in the team last year. We did have an encouraging start to the season because I think our defence on the line was pretty good with the scramble. But that just it's impossible to maintain for the full season, and especially if your defence in other parts of the field is a bit too passive.
Yep.
Because you're not having to come up too far off the line when you move up off the, you haven't had to go as far back when you're defending on the line. That action of getting back and then forward seems to be the problem. Getting back a couple of meters to play the ball that's 5 or 10 meters out is not too demanding. But I think it's just been too demanding of a team that just hasn't found the energy this season. I think the Eels are going to have to make some interesting roster decisions going into next season. They're probably going to have to add important recruits. Like they're going to have to hit the player market and make changes. I don't see any other way. And maybe a couple of changes can impact the entirety of the team in terms of injecting something in there that doesn't seem to be there at the moment. Now, they should be favourites against the Tigers. Should be. But I don't know. I don't know what to expect. I hope a lot of Eels fans stay there after the NRL to cheer them on, because that support's important. Even when there hasn't been a huge number that have stayed in the last time they had the doubleheader there, it was still more people there than what they would get, say, at Granville or up at Kellyville, because there's probably about 3,000 or so that remained in the ground if you included the corporates and the people scattered over a 30,000 seat stadium. So, and there was enough to get the chant going, so the girls knew they had the support there. But it's just not happening. And I think it's easy for us to say what's not working. How to fix it is the tough job, and that's what I suppose Steve Georgalis has to find an answer for. Chris?
I mean, if you look at the comp, you've got the Roosters and the Broncos who can seemingly just sign whoever they want without any sort of impunity. But I think Parramatta, as I think you articulated, 60s in attack this year have just been absolutely dreadful. You can see the way Parramatta's trying to build their women's program. I mean, 2 premierships in the junior grades, and then a decent chance at winning the Harvey Norman Cup as well. If you can start to build with youth and start to bring some of that through, I think the future is looking pretty bright. But I'm with you; it's hard to see even I mean, they're playing the last two teams on the ladder the last 2 weeks. They've got to win they've got to win those games and try and take something into next year, because I tell you, it's a long time between the last round of the NRLW and the first round. I think it starts in July or something like that, the first round. So that's a long time to be stewing on it. I think they've got to take some momentum, and they've got to figure out in the off season what they do. And I think, sadly, I think probably it starts in the halves, and looking at maybe some recruitment in that area might potentially help.
Yep. John?
Yeah. We always talk about, and it's not just us, obviously teams where it all comes from. You need to have an identity, and you can be a flawed team with an identity and still find success, and you can be a strong attacking team or a strong defensive team, and ideally, obviously, you have a harmony, a balance of those two phases of football, and you're great on both sides of the ball. The Eels aren't anything right now. They aren't dynamic attackers. They aren't aggressive defenders. They aren't, drag them down and beat them to your level sort of team. We've seen that in the past. Flanagan coached, Dragon team for that example this year. They don't have an identity right now, and that is why their season is sort of sputtered and petered out to where it is. It looked like in round one they were going to be a pretty balanced attacking team maybe against Cronulla, and they just haven't been able to recapture that. They are technically still in the run for the finals, but you're not really looking towards the finals at this point. You just want to use these last couple of games to create a little bit of energy and momentum heading into the preseason, which, as you mentioned, Chris, it's a long preseason now, or off in the preseason. So there is some representative football potential with the Australian squad for some of these girls, but they're going to be left stewing on what could have been this year. And so in that sort of in light of that, I hope that they can find a bit of an identity here against the Tigers, and then whoever they play next week. The
Dogs.
Yeah, the Dogs, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. You don't want to put the boot in, because these girls are out there trying. It's not a matter of effort in that regard, but they haven't got that spark right now. And it's a shame, because last year they really showed something that made you think that they could have built on it and forged a really cool identity in this grade. And instead, they've taken the 2 steps back and sort of a bit listless right now. So the Tigers are not a good team, though. Like, they're a bit of a have a go sort of squad as well. They got the one win. If you're going to struggle against the Tigers, then that really is a telling result, I think. So I want to see them go out there and win, not smash them, but at least win comprehensively. So I'm hoping for a 10, 12-point win in this game on Sunday.
John, I think there's no doubt that being without Rory Owen and Cassie Toihiku has had an impact on the Eels' attack, but we're not seeing where we're seeing a struggle as well is to have such a talented player like Abby Church be like it's like it's difficult for her to be part of the attack. She seems to be swamped on as soon as she's there. It's literally the time, like when they're looking at shifts to her, it just doesn't seem to be happening. Whether it's just that the shift is so slow, or there's an issue about the lines that are being run. But her greatest threat to opponents is what she's always been good at, which is lurking around the ruck and getting in a dummy half and having a dart and beating people with her footwork and energy and that sort of stuff, because we can't doubt that she's been a player that's brought the energy this season, but it's an energy that seems to be lacking across the team. We look back at this season and I can't really point to games and say, oh, we were unlucky there or what have you. We've lost games like deservedly this season.
Yeah.
And if we were to win the last 2 games of the year against teams that we should beat, then and just narrowly miss the finals, I don't think you can feel unlucky, because we've underperformed. We've underperformed in some games where, like we use the Warriors, for example, early in the season. That was a chance for us to have back-to-back wins, and it just didn't happen for us over there. And it was a game that should have been won. So I'm going to tip the Eels for one last time. like you, I think they should get the job done by about 10 to 12 points. If they can't beat the Tigers, I won't be able to tip them against the Bulldogs.
Because that's a game the Dogs are going to be up for. Like they're not having a great season either, but they would have 100% had this game circled on the calendar. And the Dogs, where are they? That is the NRL. That's why they've got two wins and a draw to their name, so traveling a little bit better than the Tigers, and they will be 150% up for the game next week. So, go out there and get the win.
Let's move on to the NRL, and let's hope that they're performing in front of a packed out Combank Stadium this week. John, run us through the team, and then we'll have our discussion about what we're expecting to see.
Yeah, we started the podcast talking about how it's a bittersweet preview podcast. You know, the team's been traveling so well, a chance to go to 10 wins on the season and bank a third straight win, which would be a phenomenal way to round out the year. Also bittersweet because this is the Dylan Brown farewell game, meeting his future employers. The Squire becomes a knight in 2026, and he gets one last ride with his old running mate Mitchell Moses in the halves, Jason Riles with a little gesture of grace there. Which means we start with the team. I don't know if you want to run through Newcastle here, but they've got a pretty weak team this week as well. So I'll go with just the Parramatta Eels. Isaiah Iongi, we had that discussion on Tuesday, is the fullback. Zach Lomax and Josh Adokar on the wings. Will Penisini, game 100 for young Will. He's in the number 3 with Sean Russell, his Rouse Hill running mate, in the number 4. As we mentioned, Dylan Brown will partner his captain Mitchell Moses for one final game in the 6 and 7 respectively, with Jermaine Hobgood, Riley Smith and Junior Barlaw in the front row, Kelma Tuolungi and Jack Williams on the edges, and Dylan Walker starting at lock forward. On the bench, we've got Talon Da Silva, Matt Dory, Charlie Geimer and Jordan Samrani. So it is essentially an unchanged 17 from the team that has knocked over the Roosters and the Warriors in recent weeks, although Joash Papali'i does make way for Dylan Brown for this ceremonial, like almost reverse handing over of the torch, isn't it? Where Josh has been given the torch already, but then gives it back to Dill for one last hurrah here. Extend the roster: Hawkins, Kier, Matayeli, Lusick, and Papali'i. Of course, the coach is Jason Riles. White Raymond in charge this week with Liam Kennedy in the box. And then just looking at that Newcastle team, they've got Fletcher Hunt at fullback this week. Puts Dan Gagai back into the centres. Will's going up against Bradman Best. They've had a couple of good battles in the past. Jake Arthur starting at 5'8" this week alongside Jack Cogger. They've got Saifidi, Crossland, Thompson in the front row, Young McEwen on the edge. It's also a farewell game for Kai Pearce-Paul for the Knights. He's obviously off to the Tigers. I'm just looking at what else there is there. Yeah, that's about it for the most part. So, Newcastle have not been travelling well. Like, you can't really be sugarcoating that one for them. They've obviously moved on from Adam O'Brien. In the midst of trying to find a new coach, Blake Green is the favourite or presumptive favourite right now, but who was it that said no to him? Like, didn't even want an interview recently.
Willie Peters.
Yeah, Willie Peters didn't even want an interview. That's brutal. That is brutal. But last start, loss against the Cronulla Sharks, 40-16. Lost to the Broncos before that, 46-12. Lost to the Cowboys before that, 38-4. Lost to the Panthers before that, 48-12. They barely eked out a win against the bye. Beaten by the Raiders, 44-18. I'm seeing a trend here. A lot of 40-point losses. What is that? Is that 6 losses? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Lost to the Warriors 6. Lost to the Storm 7. Lost to the Raiders 8. And then beat the Dolphins back in round 16. Oh my goodness. I didn't realize how dire it was in Newcastle. Holy dooly. They've had 2 byes. And that's it. Like, to celebrate in the last 10 weeks.
I think 8 weeks ago, they were hoping that they'd go on a run and be pushing towards finals football.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, and unfortunately for them, it hasn't panned out that way. And obviously then during that time, though the Eels haven't really been ever in the run for finals football, we've secured enough wins that we've moved well past them on the ladder. So this is, in a sense, we're almost playing in a spoon bowl, in that this match may well determine who the wooden spoon goes to this season. It's either going to be the Titans or the Knights, and the Knights will know before this game.
Yes.
It might help the Eels if the actually, I suppose it depends whether the Knights respond to the Titans climbing over them in the ladder and then are all desperate to to get the win to avoid the spoon, or whether that happens and they fold under the pressure of ending up with the spoon. Who knows how it will play out. All we need to worry about is ourselves with this game and maintaining a standard that we've been able to find in the last few weeks. I did forget to mention when I was talking about all those players that were on the sideline at training, Gideon Katonga, Kit Kat, he was actually out there training. So unfortunately, I don't think he qualifies for the South Wales Cup.
No, it can't. But can't feature in Cup, I don't think, and certainly not named in the team was Tuesday 22. So no surprise inclusion there for Kithioni, but that's great for the preseason. That is really good news.
Yeah. So, fellas, this game, we look at the Eels players this year, and maybe it's not the team that we thought would be taking the field throughout the season, but it's a team that can hold their heads up high now as we get to the end of the year. Sean Russell, who was probably not anyone's pick, well, a lot of Eels supporters picked to be a starter during the season, has become Mr. Consistency throughout this year, and he's been a big inclusion back in the team for the last couple of weeks. Mitch Moses has done Mitch Moses things in the back half of the season. The what ifs surround what if we had Mitch for an entire season instead of half a season. It's conceivable that there was some close losses, ones where the Eels were their own worst enemies in losing it, but what difference might it have made for the captain and elite player in the team to have been part of the team on those days where Eels errors or things that we just didn't execute were costly. You've mentioned, Chris, you mentioned the consistency as well of Junior Paulo and how he's reshaped his game this year to be able to play the sort of football that Riles wants from the team. And then you look at like the great debate that's going to come after this season. And there was actually a bit of debate watching training yesterday about who would be the starting back rowers next year, because the starting back rowers at the moment of Kilmer and Jack Williams, and you go, okay, and then you got Gideon, who was like a house on fire before. You got Charlie Geimer, who's going to push real hard. You've got up and comers like Will Latu and Josiah Funa Iuta coming through.
I do think that is going to shape recruitment potentially. Is that suddenly edges? Look, you're not going to say you're bursting at the seams because there is still some question marks over both Latu and Funa Iuta, although we rate them very highly. They are unproven in the NRL right now, but the edge room, Katonga has exploded this year. Kelmer looks like he's figured things out under the Riles system. He had a very slow start, got hooked against Melbourne in round 1, but to his credit, it's exactly what you want to see. You play shit and you take your licks and you go back and you work on it, and he's come back being a better player. And Jack Williams has been one of the fantastic pickups across all clubs this year. So, I do think the edge room is really transformed this year. Yeah,
and then you got also Jordan Samrani.
Yeah, as a project, who's been really good
into a back rower, and looks like he has that confidence, and like he's as someone who's played centre and looks like he's probably might belong more in the second row. He's got that little bit of pace and mobility that you would have as being a centre, and being able to bring that quality to the back row. And we saw him chase hard for the 2 tries the other week. And that came from, continually pushing up and filling the spaces. And if he continues with that philosophy, then that's what we really want to see. So plenty to like about individuals within the Eels team.
Mm-hmm.
The battle with dummy half with Riley Smith and Talon De Silva, Riley being Mr. 1%ers, like he just does all those little things so well, the kick pressure that he applies, and the precision passing, and then you've got Talon De Silva, who's maybe got a little bit of something a bit different in terms of how he likes to take the attack to the opposition. So there's all this great promise that's there, and it's actually manifested in performances the last few weeks. I'll tell you what's not lost on me, fellas. The last 2 weeks, we've had completion rates in the 90s. You complete at that sort of rate, and you're going to go a long way towards winning the game. The way that I see this game is the Eels are fielding a better team than the Knights in terms of personnel. They are fielding a team that's in better form than the Knights. And much like we said about the Eels Jersey Flegg team, where the only thing that will beat Parramatta will be Parramatta themselves, I believe the only thing that will stop Parramatta from winning this is errors.
And I do look back at that South Sydney result and say, yeah, the concern is you play down to your opposition, and certainly in that game Parramatta did. I think also with the benefit of hindsight, South Sydney are actually in pretty good form too. They dusted up the Dragons the week after. I think was it 40-10? Was it?
40-4.
40-4, something like that. It was like very one-sided. So that certainly doesn't excuse the errors that we made in that game. And
no, we made 9 line breaks in that.
That's
game,
right.
John.
But South Sydney probably in better form than we gave credit for. But like I said, the concern is you play down to Newcastle's form level, to their talent level, to just the general vibe level that they have right now. If you handle the ball anywhere near 80% plus, obviously you get to that 90% plus bracket, which is genuinely elite. You crush them. So I think, like you said, the only thing that stops Parramatta this week is Parramatta. I think that they've got a lot more to play for in the context of a Dylan Brown farewell game, which is significant because, in a way, it is a milestone. And that is something that Jason Riles has been so good at elevating in recent weeks in particular. We saw both Dylan Walker and the Fox, Josh Adokar, have the team rally for their 250th and 200th game milestones. And a farewell game is as big as any milestone you're going to have for a club. And I think that the team will get up for Dylan Brown. I'm going to back Dylan Brown.
And it sits alongside
Will's 100th game too, which is another major milestone, yes. So I am going to back the Eels to win. Look, I'm a sucker for the fairy tale finish here. I think putting a bow on his career as a Parramatta Eel, I think Dylan Brown deserves to be given the backing to be best on field. First try scorer, I'm going to, again, keep it you know what? I was going to go for Fox, but again, let's go for the storybook game. Will Penisini, first try scorer. Parramatta Eels, big win. Newcastle have been bleeding 40 points a game, so let's go 48-10.
Okay, Chris, that's a big one to follow.
It's a big one, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to liken our season to a round of golf here. So I feel like if and I know this is a rugby league podcast, but
do appreciate
it feels like
cross-code sporting
we went around the first 9 in about 60, and you're kind of scrapping around in the bushes, you're losing balls, you're doing all sorts of things. I feel on the back half of the season we've basically gone around in about even par. You're still going to probably shoot 95 to 100 for the round, but if we can birdie the last, it'll bring us back feeling pretty good about our next round. And honestly, I get the feeling we're going to put Newcastle to the sword here. There's going to be a bumper crowd out at Parramatta. There's a lot to play for. Penisini's 100th. You got Dillbags in his last game. I think we're going to win 44-6. I don't think Newcastle's got many points in them, with all due respect to Jake Arthur. I think first try scorer is going to be, we're going to see Yongi capitalising on his continually developing support game. I think Yongi backing up one of the big boppers with an offload, maybe it's Kelmer, maybe it's Junior, to score the first try. Man of the match, fairy tale ending to Dillbags. He'll get man of the match. And then, Dylan Brown, it'll go horribly at Newcastle and he'll be back in Parramatta colours within 18 months anyway, because Newcastle won't want to pay that salary and we'll get him on unders. That's my prediction for not just this game, but for the next 18 months.
There you
go. Look, I have to keep coming back to what we do in terms of completion is going to be significant. Against South, 17 errors, I think it was 70% completion rate. And then that stark difference the last couple of weeks with the 90 plus completion rate, beating far better teams than South. I'm of the opinion, yes, we will have too much strike power for Newcastle. I think our defence has improved a lot as the season's gone on. Like yourselves, I think we'll get a decent amount of points. We'll restrict the Knights. It should be a strong win. I'll go for 36-16 as a score in this. I think Dylan will get the first try. Dylan Brown. I think best on field. I'm going to go. I'm going to keep it easy here. Mitch Moses will be best on field this week, and let's hope that it is a completely packed stadium, and that we get to sing the Eels victory song one more time this season, and set the stage for coming back for a big pre-season.
Agreed. So,
fellas, that's the last time for a 5-game preview.
We're hoping for a 4-game preview podcast next week with the Flegg staying alive. But still got a couple of preview podcasts in the barrel still, because we've got at least one more round of regular and finals, and we're expecting Harvey Normans to play finals as well. So that carries us through to 2 weeks from now.
Yep. So thank you to everyone who has tuned into this to either watch or listen to. We really appreciate that support. Thank you to the people who continue to come up and say g'day. Don't forget that we're at Sterlo's this week for our final appearance for the season inside Parramatta Leagues Club, the home of the Eels. And, of course, thank you to Para Leagues for their ongoing support of the Cumberland Throw. Thank you to Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan and Parramatta, the OG of our sponsors. Again, if there's any people who want to jump on board for next year, don't forget your next year's sponsorship really kicks off with the pre-season. So get in touch with us before then. Thank you as well to anyone who's been doing that like and subscribe on the various platforms that carry this podcast. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget the Dennis Carnahan show at Vikings. Get in touch with Vikings or Rugby League, the musical, rltm.com.au for tickets to that. Fellas, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's been reaching out to me about Mum. And I've had a lot of people that have sent me messages, and the battle continues. And I really appreciate everyone's support that has been received. It means a lot to me. Means a lot to Mum and the family. So, but apart from that, fellas, again, have to finish it the usual way. Go you mighty Eels.